Greetings and salutations, Scribblers. Happy Pride Month. Today, we're going to be talking about 5 more backlist books, and each of these books has conversations in them between characters about identity and queer spaces. And I cannot emphasize enough how important representation is for any identity, ethnicity, culture, socioeconomic status, religion, etc. Every single person absolutely deserves to see themselves in media. Additionally, the more books we read about people who have a different lived experience than us, the more we become global citizens, right? With empathy, because we've applied critical thinking skills to learning those new things and new ways of looking at the world. Chai has decided to join us. This is my cat, Chai. Hello, baby girl. And this is a place where books become like a window, right? We get to see into somebody else's experience. We get to see into how another person thinks or lives their lives. And that's so important because that prevents us from getting stuck in this idea that our lived experience is the only one, right? So each of the books we're going to talk about today, like I said, deal with these conversations, and they do them really well. So I highly recommend that you read them, not only for that opportunity to learn more and become that global citizen and do your critical thinking, but also as a writer. So looking at how other authors handle those conversations and how they approach those things and make it seem very natural and just organic to the characters in the world is really important. So let's dive in. Our first author is Rosiee Thor, and I have 2 of their books, actually. So Fire Becomes Her and Tarnished Are the Stars. So both of these books feature conversations on the page between characters where they examine their identities and attractions, and they're just so well done, right? It really puts words to feelings and ideas that are a lot more common than the world wants us to think and believe. As a bonus, you also get to enjoy Rosie's phenomenal writing, complex characters, and tight plotting. Another thing I really like about both of these books is that they're set in a fantasy world. So when you set a book in a fantasy world and you have queer identities, they're not going to have that necessarily the same linguistics or the same words that we have living in America, in whatever country, in 2025, right? Living in our world on this earth. So it's really interesting to see how those are handled and how you can still convey those messages without the actual words or labels, right? So Tarnished Are the Stars is a futuristic story with court intrigue and assassins. Really, really cool. Highly recommend. Fire Becomes Her is set in like a 1920s-esque world in the middle of an election that's fraught with secrets. 10 out of 10 stars for both. Highly recommend. All right. Our second book is actually the first in a trilogy, kind of hitting you with extra books here. And it's Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. So Little Thieves, along with the other 2 books in the series, Painted Devils and Holy Terrors, features conversations between Vanya, the main character, and she has these conversations with her friends and her love interest regarding identity. And they happen in every one because as the books progress and as the character arcs progress through this trilogy, her identity shifts, right? Because that's what people do. We don't have the same identity that we had 5 years ago, or sometimes even 5 months ago. And so it's always shifting and changing. And so you see those conversations being brought up, and it's just so well done. These books also feature some of the absolute best banter and overall character arcs in the business. If you're looking for a smart, witty book that just brings in queer identities and conversations, this is absolutely one for you. These books are very seriously, like I'm not joking, a masterclass in voice and banter. You don't want to skip reading them. Just so many things to learn. So check out Margaret Owen's trilogy. Starts with Little Thieves, then Painted Devils, and then Holy Terrors. So good. So good. All right. Our third book is Rise to the Sun by Leah Johnson. Our first 2 books were fantasy. So, they kind of deal with all these different identities and in a world that doesn't necessarily have the same language as us. But the books that Leah Johnson writes are contemporary. So Rise to the Sun is contemporary. And I think I read this book in about a day. Like, that's how invested I was. I just couldn't put it down or stop thinking about it. I'm still thinking about it. It's been like 2 or 3 years since I've actually read it, and it still pops into my head at different points. So in addition to the delightful comedy of errors that kind of bring Olivia and Tony together in this, you get some really fantastic moments of discussion and discovery of identity, not only between Olivia and Tony, but with their family and friends. And I think that's really important too, because not just having two characters discussing their identity with each other, but finding that identity and having those discussions with the people that you love and the family is really, really important as well. And to see really good, healthy examples of that. So I was really affected just by how much Olivia, the main character in this book, really stepped into her power and took back her identity from those who wanted to weaponize it against her. So 10 out of 10 stars, add it to your TBR. And then after you've read Rise to the Sun, make sure you check out You Should See Me in a Crown, which is another absolute banger by Leigh Johnson. Just phenomenal author. You should absolutely read. All right. Our fourth book is The Beautiful Something Else by Ash Van Otterloo. So this is a middle grade novel with a hint of magic, right? This is also, you could consider it contemporary because it kind of takes place in our world. And we journey with the character Sparrow Malone as they navigate a very binary world and discover the truest version of themselves along the way. Ash is a phenomenal writer in the middle grade space, and I highly recommend reading their other books as well. But The Beautiful Something Else really gets right to the heart of what the non-binary community goes through in order to feel comfortable in a world that tries to shove them into being something that they're not, right? And it does all of that in the magical way that middle grade has of tackling huge topics in the most gentle ways, right? So it's just it's so beautiful and heartwarming. And like I said, like it tackles some pretty big things. There's some other big themes in there too, aside from just like the identity piece. And it's just it's so gently done and so well executed. So again, 10 out of 10 stars. Add it. Our fifth book, our last book in this little series, is Technically You Start It by Lana Wood Johnson. So this book is actually written entirely in text messages, and it's pretty brilliant. So it's like a spin on that novel in verse, right? Because we're doing text messages, which seems very fitting, like for our world in some way. Our main character thinks that she's texting with one person, but really she's gotten them mixed up with someone else who has the exact same name in her school. And in the end, they end up having these really phenomenal, awesome conversations about identity via text, which again seems to fit because so much of our world and our communication is digital today, right? So you can see how the miscommunications can start to happen because you're not able to ask clarifying questions the same way. You're not seeing facial expressions. And texting really is, for the most part, and it's a shorthand, so it's this really gets it to the point right away, but doesn't doesn't add in a whole bunch of details. So it's fantastic. I highly recommend it. It's also like, because it's a novel in verse, it's kind of like a quick read. So definitely check that out. Be sure to add it to your TBR. All right. So Scribblers, that is it. We've managed to get this video in just before the end of Pride Month. So happy June 30th, end of the month. What books have you guys read that have really nailed conversations about identity? Please share them and tell me about them in the comments. I'd love to add books to my own TBR. So Scribblers, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you get notifications whenever we have new videos coming out. And we'll see you next time. Happy reading and writing. Bye.